The rain fell like shattered glass against the old windows of the cottage, blurring the world outside into a swirl of gray. Inside, Emily sat by the fire, her fingers tracing the rim of a chipped teacup, staring at the dancing flames that seemed to mirror the quiet ache burning inside her chest. It had been 3 years since Daniel's accident, 3 long, lonely years of pretending to be fine, of smiling for others, of hiding the storm that raged within her. They said time heals all wounds, but Emily had learned that time only teaches you how to live with them. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love that finds its way even after heartbreak, then take a moment right now, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a fairy tale. It's a reminder that even in the ashes of loss, love can bloom again. The world had once been full of color for Emily. She and Daniel had been inseparable, two souls who built dreams out of laughter and promises. Their love was simple, pure, and unbreakable, or so she thought. When the car skidded on that rainy night, when headlights blurred into chaos, everything shattered. Daniel was gone before she could even say goodbye. Since then, her life had been a quiet repetition of days that blurred into nights, each moment a reminder of what she had lost. She moved to the countryside to escape the noise of the city, the endless reminders of what could have been. The small cottage she bought overlooked a misty valley, where mornings were wrapped in fog and nights were painted in silver moonlight. It was peaceful, yet hollow. Every room echoed with silence. Every step felt heavier. Sometimes she thought she could still hear his laughter in the wind, see his reflection in the glass, feel his hand brushing against hers when she closed her eyes. Then came a morning unlike any other. The sky was painted in soft pinks and golds, and the air smelled of spring. Emily decided to take a walk through the nearby forest, a place she had often avoided because it reminded her of the hikes she and Daniel used to take. The earth was damp beneath her boots, and the birds were singing with a kind of joy she hadn't felt in years. That's when she saw him, an artist sitting by a broken wooden bridge, his easel set up before the stream, brush strokes moving gently across a canvas. He looked up when she passed, his eyes the color of autumn leaves, warm yet mysterious. There was something peaceful about his presence, something that didn't demand but quietly invited. She tried to keep walking, but he smiled, a gentle, knowing smile, and it stopped her. He introduced himself as Adrian, a painter who had recently moved to the village seeking inspiration. They talked briefly about the beauty of the forest and how rare such mornings were. It was nothing special, just small talk, but for Emily, it felt like the first real conversation she'd had in years. Days passed. Their paths began to cross more often at the farmer's market, by the lake, near the old chapel. Each time, Adrian would smile in that same quiet way, and each time, something inside Emily would soften. He didn't ask about her past, didn't pry into her sadness. Instead, he spoke about art, about how colors could express emotions words could never capture. Emily found herself listening, sometimes even smiling. Slowly, she began to paint again, a hobby she'd abandoned after Daniel's death. Adrian would visit sometimes, bringing her wildflowers or sketches he made during his travels. He'd talk about the world as if it were still full of beauty, as if pain were only one color in the grand painting of life. Emily, who had long forgotten what hope felt like, started to feel a flicker of it again. But the heart is a fragile thing, and hers was still covered in scars. One evening, while watching the sunset from the porch, Emily found herself lost in thought. The sky was a canvas of fire and gold, and she wondered what Daniel would think if he could see her now. The guilt hit her like a wave. How could she smile again? How could she even think of feeling something for another man? That night she cried for hours, clutching Daniel's old photograph, whispering apologies into the dark. She told herself that love like theirs could never be replaced, and she was betraying his memory by even trying to move on. For days, she avoided Adrian. He noticed but didn't push. Then, one afternoon, he left a small painting on her doorstep. It was of a phoenix rising from ashes, surrounded by light. On the back, he had written, "The past doesn't disappear, it becomes part of your wings." Those words broke something inside her, but not in the way she expected. They broke the chains she'd wrapped around her heart. That evening, Emily stood in front of her mirror and really looked at herself for the first time in years. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who had lost everything. She was stronger now, shaped by sorrow but not destroyed by it. She realized that moving on didn't mean forgetting Daniel, it meant carrying him with her, but allowing herself to live again. From that day forward, she allowed Adrian into her world. Slowly, like dawn breaking through the mist, love began to return, not the same love she had with Daniel, but something new, something different. Adrian never tried to fill the empty space Daniel left. Instead, he built beside it. He taught her that love isn't about replacing the past, but about expanding the heart to make room for new beginnings. As the seasons changed, so did Emily. The cottage that once felt hollow now echoed with laughter. The walls were filled with paintings, hers and Adrian's, each one telling a story of healing, of rediscovery, of love reborn. Sometimes she'd still sit by the fire and think of Daniel, whispering thank you for the love they had shared. But now her tears weren't only of sadness, they were of gratitude. Yet, as life often does, it tested her again. One winter morning, Adrian fell ill. It started as a simple fever but quickly worsened. The doctors said it was pneumonia, serious but treatable. Emily stayed by his side through every sleepless night, every labored breath. The fear returned, the same kind that once stole Daniel away. She prayed silently, begging not to lose love again. Not now, when she had just learned how to live. Adrian, weak but smiling, once whispered to her, "You gave me color when I had none left. Promise me you'll keep painting, no matter what." She squeezed his hand, unable to speak, tears falling freely. Days turned into weeks, and miraculously he began to recover. When he finally opened his eyes and smiled fully again, Emily realized that life had given her not a replacement, but a second chance. By spring, Adrian was painting once more, and Emily had finished her first solo art exhibition in the village, a collection she titled Finding Love Again. Each painting was a chapter of her journey, the grief, the loneliness, the spark of hope, and the rebirth of her heart. The exhibition drew people from nearby towns, but the most moving moment came when an old woman, tears in her eyes, whispered, "Your art made me believe in life again." Emily smiled, knowing that perhaps this was her purpose, to remind others that healing was possible. As the crowd left that evening, Adrian took her hand and led her outside. The stars were bright, and the air smelled of blooming jasmine. They stood in silence, holding each other, the weight of their stories between them. Emily felt a deep peace, a sense that Daniel was watching, smiling, proud that she had finally learned to live again. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Let the message of love and healing spread to those who need it most. And before you go, I want you to comment below, "I believe in second chances," because sometimes that belief alone can bring a little light into someone's darkest night. Emily's life wasn't a fairy tale of grand castles or magic spells. It was a story of ordinary people, of pain and perseverance, of hearts that refused to stop loving even after breaking. She had once believed her story ended with loss, But now she understood that every ending is only a beginning waiting to be seen. Under the starlit sky, she whispered softly to the night, "Thank you for the love I had, and for the love I found again." And somewhere, in the quiet rustle of the wind, it felt as though the world whispered back, "You were never alone." That night, the fire in her heart burned brighter than ever before, not because she had forgotten the pain, but because she had embraced it. Love, she realized, wasn't just about holding on, it was about finding the courage to let go, to believe again, and to open your heart to the endless possibilities of tomorrow. And so, her fairy tale continued, not with once upon a time, but with finally, once again.